Okay, so this, so Kevin, when you see this, take notes and ask questions or something. Um, so, when I went through this, my first thought was besides the fact that it's written in government ease, which means you have to have a
Yes.
translator to understand what they're saying. Um,
Yeah.
the the real issue, if you get into some of the details, there's going to be a whole lot of efforts made to make good decisions or if they want to really achieve what their goal is, which is to transform VA healthcare delivery and make it much better medically and much better for the 9 million veterans that are eligible to use the system and for the 300,000 employees that they have.
Well, I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
I think I might have a bit of a vested interest in it
You
myself.
you might, yeah. At least
So,
I believe they can actually fire incompetent doctors now.
well,
I,
that's,
at least I hope that's true.
yeah, in theory they can. What has happened in the past, and I don't know if that's changing, is they end up um, claiming some form of discrimination and getting rehired,
Right.
and then shuffled aside. So basically, it becomes a waste of taxpayer money. But at
And
least
then they get sent to a parish in South America.
yeah. So anyway,
So which line items specifically did you feel we could somehow plug into as a provider of solutions or in a consulting role?
okay, if we look at line item 7 right here on this first page,
Yeah.
um, the if we look at that, contractors shall support the development of healthcare business requirements to, to gobbledygook, gobbledygook, gobbledygook. But this is going to require a lot of internal negotiation. And there is a place where perhaps we can participate. I really, want to get to the point where we're comfortable with seeing if we can help and trying to figure out what that help is going to be. Because if you look at this in terms of our specific expertise, it doesn't get down until the very last item on page 7, other.
Uh-huh.
And then we can do anything we like. But I want to talk with Phil. He contacted me. He and his wife contacted me. She's a Baha'i. He's not. Um, but but he prays every day and he believes in Baha'u'llah. So go figure. Of course, it took me 22 years, so I
Right.
can't complain.
Right. So who can judge?
Yeah. But nonetheless, they had seen my LinkedIn profile and I've seen seen some of my blogs on decision making, and that is what induced them to contact me. So they actually contacted me about participating in this team.
I see.
And then when I spoke with them, I said, well, there were 3 of us involved and we have a lot of, we think we can contribute a lot to any decision making. And we as a team would be very happy to, to talk about how we could fit into this. So then I got invited to sit through a webinar discussion of basically what's here and what the goals are from Phil Donahue, the guy that is the, I guess, president of Innovect. And, I mentioned, decision making several times, and he seemed to think that was fine as a part of all of this. But I want to have a non-group discussion with him and really, I guess, get a feel for how he sees us fitting in, because he'll end up being a prime contractor, because
Right.
Innovect apparently has that that certification of
Disabled veteran.
yeah, a service-related disabled veteran operated company. So his company has that certification.
It wasn't clear to me exactly what Innovec does. I mean,
Uh,
what
yeah, it looks like basically it reads a lot like change management and innovative approaches to business operations. It's kind of hard to know. I'd really love to sit and talk with Phil about what they do in more detail, because it looks, pretty interesting, but that's as far as I can tell. Their website is I haven't studied it in detail, but it doesn't seem to say a whole lot to me from what little I've looked at so far. But they were actually invited to the VA uh, uh, seminar that was given on this topic, to talk to people, to tell them that they were about to put out the request for proposal, and really what it was about. So people, and to give them this this work statement, which will change, Phil feels, but not to the point where it would negate any of the major features of this. So they were invited to participate. So they obviously think, and they don't want to use any of the big consulting firms, the McKinseys or the Bains or any of those. And I think that's wise, because they'll do a crap job, is my opinion. And I have a very negative opinion, especially about McKinsey, and maybe I shouldn't, but I've had some experience with them, and I've watched them ruin companies. So, so it's just a case of they want to make use of these veteran-owned businesses. So one of the reasons I thought that it would be good for me to be doing the contact is that I'm the veteran on our team.
That's right.
So, and that, not that I think that should be the only factor that's important, but they will have a wide latitude in teaming. What they want to do is go through a strategic teaming concept of subcontracting. So, and apparently, if you look at what he said to me about the projected budget, there's lots of money to go around. So it won't hurt to at least see if we can find a way to participate. And I think it'd be great just to get some experience with consulting and be able to say, yeah, we did this.
Well, I understand that. My concern was that we wouldn't have the resources to, live up to our end of whatever bargain we're striking with these people, to act as contractors. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really thinking mainly of myself, because I don't have any time. I got no time. And it's hard for me to commit to something knowing that I won't be able to make any contribution to it.
Well, first off, I think it would be useful to see what Phil has in mind and what that might translate into in terms of a contract.
Right.
If the contract is worth $100,000 a year, well, great. If the contract is worth a couple of million a year, we may want to really look at our commitment.
Well, that's true.
So, and really a couple of million a year out of $1 billion budget is not a whole lot. So anyway, I don't know. But what I wanted to do is sort of look through this. There was a couple of a couple of other areas. And in reality, I started thinking there's several places in here, and you may have seen this, where they're going to be asking for healthcare expertise.
Right.
And we happen to have in the Westminster community an MD who I know last time I spoke with Steve, he was looking for a job.
Oh, is that right?
Pardon?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I know he was with that computer company of some sort last time.
Yeah, he was, and left there. He was working for a couple of other people along the way, but he's now looking for a job. Now, of course, I can't look at him and say, "Well, Steve, we have this job. We're only making a proposal." But
Right.
what I was thinking was that Steve has tried to use consultation in when he's been working. So he has some experience with that, and we could talk with him if that would be of interest to the three of us, and see if he would like to join in. So let me just take a look here. There's a lot of stuff that will. I was just looking at the first number. I was looking. Okay, collecting and data. Health, conduct studies, yeah. Business process reengineering. I think this business process reengineering is what Innovect does. And I know at least one of the other guys that was on the call last Saturday does the same sort of thing. But they want supporting activities associated with organizational change.
Where are you looking exactly?
I'm now on line 22 here.
22?
It should be what's being shared.
Right.
Okay. So I'm looking here at line 22.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I had another copy of it up.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. No, I see where you are now.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that, and there are in that particular
transition management.
Yeah, that particular 4-line sentence, there are a whole lot of different kinds of activities that will require a lot of consideration and decisions.
Oh yeah.
And I just don't feel from my experience that most people, especially people working within a governmental agency, have a whole lot of experience with making rational decisions and evaluating ideas, because there's so much jockeying that goes on. All the stuff that we identified when we were initially structuring the book. I'm down now to, let's see, down to line 28. I've gone
Right.
down there. Line 28. Providing healthcare studies, blah, 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 to include use of artificial intelligence in healthcare. Anytime somebody starts talking about artificial intelligence, I start getting a little bit nervous because I don't think people have any concept what that means.
Well,
and
no,
emerging models in healthcare, disruptive models. Go ahead.
One of the early successful implementations of artificial intelligence was in, I suppose, expert systems, which is a nice way of saying diagnostic equipment.
Yeah.
You know, try and transfer some of the information from doctors to equipment in
Right.
knowing what to look for. And, you know, making some type of a preliminary diagnosis or diagnoses. So, I mean, that is a legitimate use of artificial intelligence.
I
What they're
agree.
talking about here, I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what worries
I have
me.
to tell you, my eyes kind of glazed over reading through this. I read about 2 or 3 line items in each colored section,
Yeah,
and that was about, and I missed line item 22 entirely, and that one
yeah,
did actually look interesting.
yeah. And there are, I had the same trouble. I had to start on this several times to get through it. Even though I sent it to you guys right away, I said, well, I need more sets of eyes looking at this thing than I've got. Like I need about 20 people,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, yeah, there were several things in here that struck me. And information and records management. Um, the again, the issue is going to be, how do you get people to make the rational decisions, even if we are not the experts in the area that we're trying to help them make decisions and solve problems. And because I'm sure you have very limited knowledge of electronic health record systems,
Right.
as do I. And but the fact of the matter is, there are multitudes of issues that have come up with them, and there are new systems that come out every year, and it's kind of it's one of those things that we deal with. But what also, let's drop down a little further to line 2034, data governance, management, availability, usability, integrity of their data, and process improvements. Again, lots and lots of areas that good solid decision making is going to be needed. One of the other things, if I can keep on going down.
Yeah, go ahead.
To group 5, to 41, the strategic communication.
I looked at that one, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's one I thought that we'd all feel that would be something that we could help, with the decision making, because if you read this, it's all about decision making. And at several points, I'm not seeing it right now, they mention a desire to have medical expertise involved, which, again, one of the reasons that I would, and I'll tell you a little story later about what Phil told us about why we don't have the RFP out already. What I'm afraid of is they'll stick the VA doctors into this, making all these decisions, and then nothing will change.
Yeah.
So part of it's going to be, where are we going to get, they talk about, disruptive technologies and new ideas, but if it's the same old people, it ain't going to happen. So, but there's a lot of places here that I saw, let's see, let's keep going. Developing a strategic communication plan. Again, they're going to have to decide how that's going to work, and they can't just use the same old crap that they've been using for years. They need to really kick over the apple cart on many of these things. And that's where I think solution building and the Baha'i consultation, someone asked me recently why we didn't just call it consultation, and I said because because we Baha'is have a very definitive definition of what that means, and it isn't what other people think consultation is.
Right.
So we wanted to give it a totally different name so that they can say, oh, what is this? So anyway, but there are just, all of these things require work to develop plans, which means decisions, which means, and I have seen the dogfights that these meetings can devolve into, and none of us want to see that, and that's exactly what solution building is supposed to ameliorate, right?
Right.
So let's see. Healthcare related promotional materials. This is something that just drives me crazy because most of it is either totally unreadable or fake, false. In reality, that's the thing that has always bothered me.
Oh, you're looking at 46?
I'm looking at 46.
Yeah.
Just incredible amount of material that needs to be put together, and they need to cut through the usual foot dragging that happens in an organization like the VA, because people just don't want to be associated with something that doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And so, there's a lot of stuff here that I think we can offer our services to help with the decision making. But the question in my mind has been, how do we start that out? Do we start off with training on that process, which would certainly induce us to get the training materials written?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't really have a presentation to sell, so to speak.
If we had to have it, we could do it.
The other concern that I have is that just in reading through this language in here, which is designed to sound important, it's designed to purport to actually contain information, and yet in many of these line items, it could have been said in 5 or 6 words what they really want, what they really mean, and I'm concerned that, and maybe it's because I've been doing business with government agencies for 30-some years, I don't know how agreeable they would be to solution building. It seems as though they're driven more by budget, and that's driven in large measure by politics. They have budget cycles, and they'll get into a meeting with some kind of budget committee, and they'll present something to some board of supervisors at some level, and they'll just go down the list in perfunctory manner, and it's always based on the bottom line, the funding, and forget innovation. And I don't know. I'm just a little wary that this might not be the best patient to treat. If you're just starting up a medical practice, you don't want your first 5 or 6 patients to be terminal. You want to have a few successes.
Right, which is another reason not to be a prime contractor. You're distanced from it at that point.
Well, that's true, and I was actually kind of surprised that Innovect was contacting us before they had landed a contract. I could understand if they had a contract, they thought, well, we need some additional support on this. Or are they counting on, us and other subcontractors to be listed in their little boxes here, candidate team member, to bolster their chances of winning the RFP.
And the answer to that is probably that's exactly what they're thinking. They can't do it all, or even, I think, a gigantic part of it, which is why they're trying to put together a team
Right.
to be able to land that contract. And I, just from listening and talking with them briefly, with Phil briefly, what he said was that the RFP was supposed to have been out in May. Then it was supposed to have been out in August. And then he found out from a contact of his who has insider contacts at the Veterans Health Administration that now they were having an internal argument as to whether they should be using people who already have experience with the VA or people who do not.
Right.
And my first thought was, well, if they want people with experience in the VA, they're going to get nothing out of this billion-dollar contract.
That's right.
They won't have any innovative anything. And of course, and I said that to the five of us, the five guys that were on the call. They all agreed that that's exactly what would happen. And if that's the case, then Innovect won't even get chosen.
That's right.
So, but apparently the encouraging part is that there are obviously some people there that have enough clout to be able to be listened to that are saying, no, we need outsider help. We need new ideas. So, and I'm pretty certain what's going on. And the reason that this work statement was put together is that the VA wants to see these proposals the instant, basically, that they actually, if they ever do, release the RFP. And so Phil is trying to put together the best possible team that can do, a bunch of this work. And, so that was my feeling in the call. The reason here is to really enhance the idea of having Innovect as one of potentially several prime contractors.
Well, then, if we were to plug in a team member, it would be KMG LLC.
That's right.
Would be the entity, not individuals.
Yeah.
And as far as the experience summary, we'd have to devise, some sort of statement about
decision.
About decision. Yeah. What was that? Let's see. In line 22, was it?
22. Support all activities associated with organizational change.
There's something there about change. I don't know. I'm not sure what a gap analysis is. Maybe it's 28. There's gap analysis again.
Yeah, that's a favorite term.
Yeah.
And it has basically no meaning as far as I can tell, other than
there was something about change management.
Yeah. Beginning on line 21, there's several, there's
Right.
And then 22, change management and transition.
That's what,
Yeah.
We might be able to word something, because really that's kind of what we're dealing with. We're trying to change the way people arrive at decisions.
Yeah.
And that's quite revolutionary, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Activities associated with organizational change.
Yeah.
Transition management. I'm not exactly sure what. Well, I guess that's change management. Implementation of major communications associated with major initiatives, risk assessment, organizational transformation. and culture change. Yeah, that I think that's probably that sentence there, even though it's a terrible sentence, is probably the closest to what we could offer some expertise on, I think.
Yep. Yep. Change behavior in decision making.
Was there any use of the word decisions at all in this document?
If not, I didn't actually see that word, but all of this implies multiple decisions, multiple branch points, and making decisions. Let's see. Transition management, implementation of major initiatives. What are the initiatives?
Yeah.
You have to make a decision as to what they are. Culture change. What does that mean other than gobbledygook?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things in here that require some people to make decisions as to where they're going and why they're going there. You know, what their goals are. And that would be, you know, there's a strategic planning component of this that has, you know, and strategic planning is all about decisions, all about making decisions about where you're going and how you're going to get there, what your goals are, you know, even to writing a mission statement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look through here, they never talk about decisions, but everything they refer to practically requires decisions being made. Line 28, for instance, not something that, you know, we might ourselves be involved in. Provide healthcare studies as they relate to staffing, evaluation, HR, blah, 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 blah.
Gap analyses.
Yeah, gap analyses, yeah. All of those require a decision as to A, what they mean and how they affect the VHA, Veterans Health Administration. You know, among myriad potential healthcare related subjects, tasks may include studies of blah, blah, blah. All of these things may include, somebody has to decide what's going to be there and why.
And apparently they feel that emerging models are disruptive. The last line there, the study and utilization of emerging disruptive models in healthcare.
Yep. Well, if you think about it, emerging technologies are always disruptive.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, and emerging models, you know, here is where, you know, there's an opportunity. My view is maybe even creating those models. That would be an interesting problem to deal with from my standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of this. Shall evaluate and recommend solutions to compile, evaluate, analyze, control, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is line 31. In a whole list of different areas, again, somebody has to sit down and make the decisions as to how they're going to go about that and what they're actually going to pursue. And then further decisions, when they actually do them, what have they learned? So I looked at this. Originally, I said, "Oh, we can't do any of this crap." And then I thought, "Whoa, stop! You know, you've just been writing a blog about decision making, and every single one of these, not every single one, obviously, but all through here is just place after place where people have to meet, sit down, hammer out decisions, and then act on them. And there is where, you know, again, I'm at the point now in the blogs where I'm talking about the ability of an individual who decides not to implement a decision to be able to torpedo it.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. And I guarantee you there are people all through the VA that will try to torpedo anything, especially if they think it'll affect their job.
Of course they will.
Which, you know, is a shame. I really resent seeing taxpayer money being thrown away on these things. But
Yeah.
Having said that, you know, this contract is going to be let to someone, assuming that they actually agree to do an RFP. You know, who knows? The VA administration changes every other day, just like every other department of government these days. So who knows what's going to happen? But I was just looking down here. I was down here where, let's see, what am I looking at? Yeah. Video and film production. You know, healthcare supply chain efficiency. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know much about that.
well, I mean,
You may.
you know, the problem is the healthcare supply chain. What, you know, healthcare supply, there are about 100 chains in the healthcare supply chain. There's the chain of care from care provider, whether that be physician or a nurse or, you know, an aide. That's a chain. And how
Yeah.
efficient is that? There's the chain of supplies. I mean, literally, the material you use, just what you know, these kinds of terms always drive me crazy, and I think I will talk with Phil about that and see what his response is. I mean, these such general, you're right, they're general terms that say
I mean,
nothing with a lot of words.
this has been cut and pasted from some other documents.
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. But the whole, you know, let's see, we've got financial management. I don't even want to touch that.
No.
Other than, you know, I'd be happy to train a group in how to make decisions, but after that, I don't want to touch financial management. Policy, anytime you get into policy, you've got lots and lots of opportunity for you know, for needing to make those decisions. And this could be such a gigantic project that it's doomed to failure. I don't know. But what I really wanted to do was go down here to 95, the ending point of these of page 7.
Oh, I see.
So they're at, and they sent this directly to Phil from the VA. So they put this in. Please use the columns to the right to indicate capabilities to our clients that would provide value and are not included in the elements above. Well, as you've pointed out correctly, nowhere does it say anything about decisions.
No.
But the whole document is full of decision points. So that was my thinking, was that we could provide some services that would help smooth the decision-making process or help people make better decisions if that is considered appropriate for the project. And I think only Phil can tell me that. But I got to believe that since he knows what we do already, he has to feel like we can offer something to this project.
I guess. Why don't you ask him what it is, and we'll put that in.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to. I'm going to talk with him. soon as I can. I might try to talk with him on, God, what's my schedule like next week? Awful.
So the VHA is a part of Veterans Affairs of the VA,
Yeah, the Veterans Health Administration is a part of the Veterans Administration.
right? So dealing with the healthcare component as
Yeah,
opposed to
as
whatever,
opposed,
as opposed to veterans benefits or
yeah,
something.
as opposed to all of that, all of those other things that they do. Yeah, just
Right.
so it is, and it is, I think, perhaps the largest single part of the Veterans Administration is probably the healthcare administration.
Yeah.
If they've got 300,000 employees. But nonetheless, it is one that unfortunately is subject, of course, to our congressional people and their
Yep.
budget stuff. But
Yeah.
it's one that has a defined purpose, which is providing health care.
That's right.
So, and I'm with you. I don't want to touch any of the rest of the VA. I mean,
No.
I've been dealing enough with them.
Okay.
with respect to my dad. So,
Right.
I just, I don't want to touch that part of it either. I don't think it's,
So
and it's not part of the deal.
So the VA that's like a cabinet level department, isn't it?
The Department of Veteran Affairs is a cabinet level department. I don't know if
Right.
they're a sub-department in defense or not. I don't know how they're structured because, of course, they keep rearranging the executive departments anyway.
Right. Let's see. I'm looking up something here because I couldn't remember. I thought it was. Let's see. The VA is an agency of the federal government, provides benefits, healthcare, cemetery services to military veterans. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs, a cabinet-level official, is appointed by the President with the advice and consent of the Senate.
Okay.
The VA is the federal government's second largest department after Defense. 280,000 people. I don't know how old this is. Could be current.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I don't even know who the VA secretary is.
I don't either, because I think it's also changed recently.
It may have.
Yeah. And
well, I have gotten some sense that there was some commitment to change.
Yeah.
In the VA.
Yeah. Well, they better change because they have an all volunteer army and they've been screwing their veterans for years.
That's right.
So change is something that they need to do. The question is it so big that changing it is going to be like changing plate tectonics?
Yeah.
And I don't know. So anyway, that was my thinking on this.
Well, I guess the bottom line is I don't see any harm in finding out more information.
Yeah.
And maybe that would help us, better decide what potential role we could play. But again, I mean, as far as KMG providing a role, that may be somewhat limited by the time constraints on at least a couple of the partners. I gather Kevin's pretty busy too.
Yeah, well, we're all pretty busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gathered that Kevin is pretty busy myself. So, and I can understand that. But again, this is minimally a 5-year contract, and depending on what that could mean to KMG, that might make people think twice.
Yeah.
Who knows? And I don't even know how they're going to structure the contract. We don't actually know that, whether it's going to be, we have to provide, provide justification for every dollar that's paid out or what. I don't know. That's another thing I wanted to talk to Phil about, because if this is an invoiced budget, then what are the parameters? If that's the case, the government's going to have limits on what they'll pay consultants and everybody else, unless you happen to be Rudy Giuliani. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Or any number of other people who shall remain nameless.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to go there, do we?
No, we don't.
It's too easy a target.
Well, okay, so are they expecting to get this document back, this spreadsheet, with something plugged into the Innovet section?
Yeah, that's what they're looking for, but I need to figure out what it is. Plus, they wanted CVs or bios or LinkedIn profiles, because the VA is going to have to approve everyone who's involved in the team.
Yeah.
Which just complicates matters even more.
Right.
But we'll have to see. I need to talk with Phil in a lot more detail about this. Been struggling with other things lately.
Frankly, if I were to provide a CV, it wouldn't really suggest that I have any qualifications to handle any of this.
Well, that's part of the problem. Yeah, same for me.
Yeah. So I mean,
but I think then
on
that
the
it's
other
a case
hand,
of
if Innovet gets a contract, then they can hire us as subcontractors, can't they? Or would that have to be approved by the VHA as well?
I do believe that was the implication from talking with Phil last Saturday.
I see. That sounds.
But it's a CV, a bio, or a LinkedIn profile.
Right.
So, you may have to just create a LinkedIn profile.
Well, I may, but I won't.
Yeah.
I really, at this point in my life, I wasn't planning on applying for any more jobs.
No, I wasn't either until it became obvious that LinkedIn is how I got these guys. I got on LinkedIn many years ago and had been stealth LinkedIn.
Yeah.
For a long time.
I'd really like to know more about what Innovet's piece in it. And,
yeah.
And if that requires signing a non-disclosure agreement, I have no problem with that, because I can certainly keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. As Baha'is, we've learned to do that pretty well.
Yeah, and I understand the need for that, because they wouldn't want us running to a competitor who's bidding on the same piece of the contract or whatever.
Yeah.
At least I assume that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because once the RFP is out, I mean, that's public information.
Yeah, the RFP is, but individual proposals are not.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah. No, I don't have any problem with a non-disclosure either. It's a mutual one, so they're, not that we have a whole lot of secrets yet to tout, but nonetheless, I feel like he was being responsible in that as well. So.
All right. So what's the next step here? You're going to talk to Phil? Or?
Yeah, I'll talk to Phil, and I will and summarize what I learn and get it back to you guys immediately.
Yeah. Well, my life at present seems to consist of 8 hours of work and then another 8 hours of doing things for other people. Uh, at least that's what yesterday was like.
Yeah, well, believe me, I understand that.
And it's a good thing I only sleep 6 hours because that at least gives me 2 hours to myself.
Yeah, yeah, I know that feeling too. So
So,
how are your mother and brother doing?
well, Jeff's doing better. We saw him yesterday. We went down to Cambridge Healthcare,
Uh-huh.
and he was cleaned up. It was clear that they've been very rigorous in making sure he gets all his meds, because that was one of our concerns before he became ill enough to be hospitalized,
Yeah,
was that he was not taking certain antipsychotic medications, you
yeah,
know, and I think he'd basically just pretend to take them, and my mother couldn't tell the difference.
yeah,
There were some signs that were apparent, but he seemed more lucid, and we had a fairly good conversation, although he's really only slowly accepting the fact that he's residing there on a permanent basis. That's been rather difficult. But
yeah, I can
then,
imagine it is.
but then he, in his current mental state, he kind of has the emotional development of a 10-year-old
Mm-hmm.
in certain ways, So
Right.
I don't want to stay here again. I go home, that
Yeah,
sort of thing, but not in that voice.
yeah,
threw that I threw that in for effect.
yeah,
But I've been trying to make it, abundantly clear that mom just can't look after you anymore.
yeah,
She's 100. She's 101. She can just barely look after herself right now,
yeah,
with a lot of help from us. You know, which is really, uh, she can keep going as long as she has fairly steady contact from us,
right.
and assistance,
Yeah,
uh, because getting her into a facility would be also a problem of uh, even greater magnitude. Uh, and we're kind of delaying that as long as possible. Let's just leave it at that.
yeah,
And trying to improve her home living environment so that it's easier for her to continue with her acts of daily living,
yeah,
alone as much as possible. So we'll see. And Jeff is just going to take time. I mean, it's a nice enough place, and we were quite impressed by the healthcare workers there.
good.
So the staff seems to be really on top of it. And so, it's just going to take some time for him to adjust to the fact. He really just thought that, our mother was going to go on forever, just take care of him forever, another 20, 30, 40 years. I
Yeah,
said, I mean, yeah,
which sort of makes it sound like he's living in the moment rather than understanding that time
yeah,
passes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he had to, yesterday was his birthday, and
Ah,
he turned 77, so
ah,
he has to have some. That was a little bit of a reality check,
yeah.
just the fact that he could say, "Well, I wish I could take 10 years off." That was a pretty lucid statement right there.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we'll see. We're just glad that this opportunity, we kind of viewed it as an opportunity, really, that we were able to have medical professionals that my mother wouldn't fight make
Yep,
the recommendation that he be in a long-term care, because
yep.
he really should have been in one years ago,
Hmm.
but my mother would have none of it. And all about stubborn parents, from both sides,
I
parents,
wish I didn't
in-laws.
actually.
Yeah, I know, but there's some fights that you avoid as much as possible,
Well,
and you have to fight them.
yeah,
So this came up, and it was the right time, and we kind of, in a sense, seized the opportunity because we felt a door had opened for us,
yeah.
and a solution was provided to a problem that had been vexing me for years and years and years about
Hmm.
what to do with Jeffrey if my mother were to pass away.
Yeah,
You know, and now that component of the problem has been solved. So
yep.
I'm very grateful, and I really felt that divine assistance was opened the doors here for us.
Yeah,
So I'm grateful for that. So now we're just going to see how it goes with my mom, and rely on personal contacts and friends visiting, and see if I can get her to accept some senior services, people to come over, volunteers. She's,
yeah. We used Visiting Angels.
yeah, I remember you mentioned them. Are they like statewide, or are they just up
I
there?
think they have offices all over. I
Yeah,
know they're in Fort Collins and Loveland, so I'm assuming that they're going to be down in the metro area. We found them we found that we needed to get the right person for Reen.
yeah,
And then that person became a family member, basically, even though, Judy is actually in her 70s herself.
right.
But she would come over, and Reen just loved her, and she could get her to do things, and she'd feed her and pamper her and take care of her in ways that, that were different enough from what we were doing that they made her very happy. So if you
Yeah,
can find the right person, it's like having another family member in there taking care of, and they're not cheap. And
uh-huh.
we'd have her in for, I think, 8.5 hours a week.
Yeah,
And that was basically to give Susan some time to get out of the house,
right,
because it was days when I was working.
right.
Um, so it gave Susan a chance to get out, and sometimes she'd come up and we'd go out to lunch and that sort of thing. So it was really good. And Judy was absolutely wonderful. Took her for walks, and after a while took her out in the wheelchair.
Well,
You know,
do they charge by the hour, or
yeah,
the
it's an
type of
hourly
service?
rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they charge? Just
They were
roughly.
charging. They were up to when Reen died. They'd gone up, I think, to 27.50 an hour.
Okay. Well, that's not
And
terrible.
it was worth every penny of it,
Yeah,
because Judy'd come in and cook and clean, and we could ask her to fix up a dinner, that would be several days worth of leftovers, and
right.
she would do that and wash dishes, and she did Reen's laundry.
Oh, yeah. See, and
Yeah,
that's really what my mom needs, is
yeah,
someone to do some of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They were wonderful, and so then we just warm things up in the microwave on other days when we weren't doing the cooking ourselves, but
Right.
it really worked out well.
Good. Well, I'll check them out.
Yeah, we were happy with them. So, um, they're but you have to you may have to experiment with a couple of people. We told them several times, no, we don't want her back.
Uh-huh.
And so you have to be, the right person comes in, and just you get the right person, and it's a miracle. It's
Yeah.
a godsend.
Well, yeah, and my mother has never really lived alone
Yeah,
before, in her entire life.
yeah, yeah.
And she doesn't like it, or at least she says she doesn't like it. Uh,
No,
but she definitely, brightens up, when there are people,
yeah, yeah.
and gets out of the blue funk that she's prone to from time to time.
It's lonely being there by yourself.
Yeah,
And I mean, even though I think she was probably lonely with Jeffrey too, but at least there was someone else in the house.
Well, and she had somebody to pick on.
Yeah.
Pick and boss around and
Yeah.
kind of control, sort of. Although she wasn't really controlling him as much as she thought.
No, obviously not.
Yeah. So, okay.
But anyway,
Well, very good. I guess if you can find out more information, about what exactly their expectations are from KMG LLC, that would, I think, help me understand this better,
okay.
and could probably help all three of us, come to a decision as to whether, we can really commit to anything.
Yeah. Well, I will do that and get back to you guys. I
Okay.
want to get it done. We're going to be busy all day Tuesday getting ready to leave. And then we have a Birth of the Bob movie that we're hosting at the Loveland Library Tuesday night. And then Wednesday morning, Susan and I head south.
Right.
Stopping for, I think, Marion's interment, and then just heading south.
And did you say that was at Fort Logan?
Yeah, she'll be buried at Fort Logan because that's where Dwight is.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right.
So, anyway, and it's
Very
less
good.
than an hour from where she lives.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to you soon somehow or
Okay.
other.
Oh yeah, we will, and give our best to Lauren and your mother.
And our love to Susan.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Okay, signing
night.
off.